All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us on a Monday. You know, it was a fun weekend of football to watch. Certainly not that fun for UNLV. And, you know, we cover UNLV. We talk about UNLV. The UNLV basketball season right around the corner. TJ Otzelberger in year one. And should be interesting. We hope he does a good job. I like what he's done so far. And we'll continue to talk UNLV hoops as the season approaches. But, you know, we have Tony Sanchez on the show all the time. I think he's a great guy. He's an easy guy to root for. He's a good dude. And you know, like I said, I mean, I root for him. And trust me, there hasn't been every coach at UNLV I have not rooted for. Okay, let's put it that way. But Sanchez is an easy guy to root for. They just got destroyed over the weekend and embarrassed against Wyoming. The score 53-17. And it's just a debacle. I'm not sure he lasts the rest of the year. I tend to think that Francois is going to wait till the end of the year and then get rid of him and fire him. But let's get this guy on the line right now who I think has a thing or two to say about UNLV football. His name is Bernie Fratto. He's a nationally syndicated radio host for Fox Sports Radio, and he does his show right out of Las Vegas, and he's covered UNLV for a number of years, and he joins us right now. Bernie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. And, you know, coincidentally, a week ago was the 25th anniversary of the Shawshank Redemption. And as it pertains to UNLV football, I think Andy Dufresne would say they better get busy living or get busy dying.
I like that. By the way, I do have a Shawshank poster in my living room, one of my favorite movies of all time. All right, so Bernie, let's start from square one here. I was not a big fan of the hiring from the beginning, and I've been on the radio saying that for a number of years. Why? Because you don't hire a guy that's never coached one day at the college level, who coached at the high school level with the best talent, some of the best high school players in the country. He wins, and then everybody thinks he's the next Messiah and he's going to turn this UNLV thing around. It has backfired on them. It's the same reason why I didn't like the Dave Rice hire in basketball. He had never been a head coach before, even though he was an assistant at the college level. But this guy, Tony Sanchez, who I like, who we both like, we all agree he's a good guy. He never coached at the college level, and this is the guy that everyone thought was going to recruit and turn this thing around. It just backfired on him, has it not?
Well, you're not wrong, Brian, and there's historical, preference here. Jerry Faust, they tried this at Notre Dame back in '82 when he was a legend at Moeller High School in Cincinnati, and that didn't work, and it was tried in Texas about 15 years ago with a guy named Todd Dodge, who was a legendary high school football coach, and he failed pretty badly at North Texas State. And I think when you juxtapose, Brian, the Tony Sanchez hiring and look back just the last 3 years, let's take Wyoming. They were in the doldrums. They bring in Craig Bowl. By year 3, he goes 8-6. They go to the Poinsettia Bowl and they play BYU head up. Look up north at Reno. You hire Jay Norvell. Year 2, he wins 8 games, goes to a bowl game, beats Arkansas State. Hawaii, Nick Rolovich. They bring him in, year 2, 8 wins, goes to a bowl game. So when you juxtapose that there are other coaches being hired in the same conference that are having measurable success fairly quickly, and then when you look at year 5 and the program, unfortunately, seems to be regressing on the field pretty badly, you're not wrong in your assessment in retrospect that perhaps this isn't going to work out.
I believe that I'm not even sure he would have gotten the job, but I think he certainly would have been gone after last year, if not for the Fertittas. Who are the Fertittas? Well, they're billionaires. They've donated a lot of money to UNLV, and you could make the argument, though, certainly it helps UNLV and it helps the program with the facilities and all the money that was raised. There's no question about that. However, we're at a point now in athletics where all you need is somebody like the Fertittas to donate a bunch of money, and then they control whether you fire a coach or not. Now, I think he's going to be gone after this year, and we'll get into that. But you can make the argument, it doesn't matter how much money you give a university, it doesn't do you any good, at least short term, if you don't have the right coaching staff in place, does it not?
Well, I can't take exception with anything you said there. Let me unpack it for just a second. Again, let's go back to 30,000 feet and descend down. The situation where you might find a rich benefactor that wants to help a university is not new. I mean, look what T. Boone Pickens did for Oklahoma State.
Right. Yep.
Look what Phil Knight did for Oregon. And even Stephen Ross, who owns the Miami Dolphins, a Michigan graduate, he's been a benefactor to the tune of $100 million to the University of Michigan. But to your point, if that money does not produce a winning product on the field, And what have we accomplished? And I want to take this a step further, Brian, because we've known each other well. You know my background. I've covered Big Ten football for 14 years. I was right there in the belly of the beast. Here's why I want to bring that up. First, so everybody will think I'm cool. But number two, here's the real reason, Brian, because you're a thinker. And I want you to think about what I want to say here. Just a little attitude. It's been proven now that if enough people care, anything can happen. Look at the Golden Knights. The Aces are competing.
Absolutely.
Right? And even the Lights to a degree. So how can we as a city in Las Vegas get enough people to care with the resources we have here to make the Rebels the crown jewel of their conference? And we'll just go from there. Here's why I say this is so important, because this is what I learned about covering Big Ten football. Your football program, I'll draw an analogy, is a lot like the front yard of a beautiful home. Let's say you're out house hunting and you pull up to a house and you're interested. The first thing you're going to notice is the front yard. Now, it's not the most important part of the house, but it's an indicator for the rest of the house. So if the front yard looks good, you might want to go in and see the rest of the house, and you might be very interested. If a university has a good football program, what that can do for the university is immeasurable, far beyond just elevating their stature, elevating their profile, and engendering investment and attention and revenue. That revenue might pay for that chemistry department. That chemistry department might find a cure for cancer. You don't know.
Right.
So a football program is important. No one should poo-poo this, and it's right there in front of us. The Golden Knights have just proved in 3 years they created something from nothing that they become an international team. Could something along those lines happen at UNLV? Well, again, what have they done at Boise State? What have they done? Utah was in this conference not long ago. Look what they're doing in the
No, you're right.
You get my point, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, if you're just joining us, it's Bernie Fratto, does a nationally syndicated host, Fox Sports, straight out of Vegas. Great show. A lot of great gambling tips in there, too. All right, so Bernie, you just asked the question, and you posed it to me, how do you get people to care? Well, first of all, talk about the Knights for a second. This October 1 shooting, and the second anniversary comes up tomorrow. The way the Vegas Golden Knights embraced the city and people latched on to them and the way they helped people during that tough time, I think that people just bought into it immediately. Whether they were, and keep in mind, that was the first week of the season, and people bought into it. Did it help that they win? Absolutely. So I think, number one, you have to be a part of the community, and I'm not sure UNLV basketball and football have done a great job of that over the course of the last decade at least. So that's number one. Number two, you have to win. This football program has been awful for decades. And I know Randall Cunningham, we're going to try to get him on the show. I know he would agree with me on that. They have been terrible. Okay, so to me, that's number two. Number three, Sam Boyd Stadium hasn't helped. Okay, it's way off the strip. There's a lot of people in Summerlin that don't want to make the drive. And the fact that they are moving to this new arena stadium where the Raiders are going to be playing, if there's only 8,000 people showing up, that is going to be a complete and total and utter embarrassment. So I think those are the three key issues that I bring up. Marvin Menzies did a horrible, not to go back to basketball, Menzies did a horrible job getting into the community. You got this guy, T.J. Otzelberger, who I think has done a very nice job thus far in getting out in the community. I think he's done well. And, I know Tony Sanchez has a lot of friends here, but I don't see the football program doing the things that are necessary to get people to buy in. So that's my assessment. You asked, how do you get people to care? You got to win. You got to be a bigger part of the community. And I'm not sure they've done that.
Probably not. And it all emanates from what's taking place in the field and how they block and tackle. Now, I do agree with you. Tony Sanchez is a good guy. I'm glad he got the job. I was for it. I'm glad they didn't fire him last year. Desiree Reed wanted to. Let's make no bones about that. It's funny because a local reporter asked her the other night, is she going to fire him now? I don't think she has the autonomy to fire him. And frankly, I think she's strutting like a peacock because she's looking around saying, see, I told you we should have fired this guy last year. My moles told me they had Jim Moore waiting in the wings. So I think Tony will last the season. Maybe if they get their 7th loss, they may talk about it. I don't know. Then they can start the new coaching search. Let's take it one at a time. They're 21-point home dogs against Boise State. What's happening on the field is the most bothersome thing to me, and it trumps everything else, Brian, because Coach Sanchez says this was his best team. I listened to your show. He said it to you more than one time.
Yeah,
this is his best team.
Yep.
He's got guys, he's got recruits. He's got depth. He's got this. And they're in a conference, by the way, somebody better sit up and take notice. They're number 3 of the 10 conferences in terms of their performance against other conferences. The next 7 opponents that the Rebels will play, including the one they just played, that would be 8 opponents, all have victories over Power 5 teams, with the exception of Fresno, who lost 2 nail-biters
That's a good
to
point.
Minnesota and Oregon State. They could
You're
have
right.
easily won both.
The conference has
easily
done well. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
San Jose State traipses into Arkansas and beats a good physical Arkansas team. I watched that game. They beat them. So it can be done. It should be being done. The second part of the equation is not only are the Rebels not winning on the field, they're not even competing.
Right.
They should have given up 60 points. Their running back went down at the 1-yard line, and Wyoming took 3 knees. It's a good thing it wasn't Woody Hayes. He'd have gone for the 60.
You are so
And
right, Bernie.
Brian,
yeah, you're right.
I'll tell you what else, Brian. I'm going to watch when the Rebels host Wyoming in basketball. I bet they don't give I bet they hold Wyoming to other 60 in basketball. So they couldn't do that,
That's
so
true.
They're not competing. They're not winning. And the third thing that I find bothersome is that there doesn't appear to be any sense of urgency or adjustments. It's just a lot of platitudes. Well,
None.
we got to do some soul searching. We got to be better. We got to do better. Well, we did pretty good against Northwestern. No, you didn't. Your running back, who's terrific, by the way, great kid, terrific running back. He had 2. He got to the edge twice, and twice the Northwestern defensive end lost contain. After halftime, you knew they'd make that adjustment. He set the edge, and you forced the running back into the middle of the field where the football players are. You take away those 2 long runs, and that score might have been worse than it was. And I think Northwestern was looking ahead to Wisconsin anyway. So they're not competing, they're not winning, but we were told we had the best team.
Yeah, that's
I don't
troublesome.
have any answers for you in this phone call.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's extremely troublesome. If you're just joining us, Bernie Fratto on the line does a show straight out of Vegas, nationally syndicated sports host for Fox Sports. Bernie, I have to give you credit because at the start of the season, before they played Southern Utah, I asked you how many wins you think this team is going to have. You said 4. I said 6. I'm thinking that even you might have been a little bit too generous. I'm not sure they get to 4 wins now, Bernie.
No, I was wrong. I should have checked the schedule. I thought they'd win 4, but I thought they'd play Southern Utah 3 times. So I was mixed up.
Yeah, well, we don't want them to play Howard. We certainly know that. So your estimation, as mine is that as soon as the season is over, Sanchez is out the door. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's been pretty much the stated, standard of performance, as it were. I'm stumbling around here. My point is, Reed Francois said either go to a bowl game or you're out. And, barring a miracle, it doesn't look like they're going to a bowl game. I would just say this. I do not think they'll fire him midseason. I think you alluded to it earlier. They have the bad taste in their mouth from firing Rice midseason. It wasn't serving any fruitful purpose. They're certainly not going to fire him now. It's a ridiculous question, really.
Yeah,
Turn in your media credential if you're going to ask stupid questions like that, because the only reason you would fire a coach after week 3 is because you got someone waiting in the wings that can turn this around tomorrow. Okay, that happens in the NHL. The St. Louis Blues coach was fired 4 weeks into the season. They brought in Craig Berube. He got him a Stanley Cup. Unless there's somebody getting the Rebels to the Stanley Cup, you're not firing Tony Sanchez and starting over. You're going to start from scratch, move into the new stadium, and go to the church and light a candle and hope something works out.
I don't think T.J. Otzelberger was a great hire. I hope I'm wrong. I'm certainly pulling for him. But she went the route of paying a coach $1.1 million a year plus incentives. T.J. Otzelberger is the highest paid Mountain West Conference coach. And in my personal opinion, winning at South Dakota State is not proven. That's not enough to be the highest paid coach in the Mountain West Conference. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I like TJ. I think I like what he's done. I like the recruiting. I like what he's done so far. You got to produce on the court. We will see what happens. But to me, that was suspect. The amount of money they're paying him and the fact that winning at South Dakota State doesn't mean you're a proven coach. With that being said, the reason why I bring that up, Bernie, is I want to ask you, where do you think she goes from here? And what type of coach do you think she's looking for? Is she going to hire a young and up-and-coming coach like a T.J. Otzelberger, or is she going to hire a guy that's been doing this for 25 or 30 years?
Well, 2 things, Brian, and this is really a two-way conversation versus you just asking me. And here's what I mean by that. How do we know Desiree Reed-Francois has the autonomy to make the decision anyway? She's going to have to go before a board. She's probably going to have to go before donors and the whole 9 yards, just like they did with Chris Beard. Chris Beard sat there in the room and saw these long faces. I think that turned him off. and ended up going to Texas Tech, and he might have gone anyway, but that's a story for a different day.
Right.
So let's just assume that she hires someone and she's got the autonomy and it fits within the budget and they find the money, which you can always find the money if you really want to. I'd have to ask her what her criteria is, because you bring up a good point about TJ Otzelberger. There are a couple things I like. I like the schedule he's put together. They're going to play UCLA, Kansas State, Cincinnati, BYU. The question is, did the TJ Otzelberger hire do anything to fill up an empty arena? And I'm going to say, unfortunately, no, unless they win.
I agree.
Now, there are certain coaches they could have probably hired. I won't name names, Rick Pitino. They would have sold the arena out week one. Okay, if that's your objective, they would have sold out. I'm going to be there. You'll be there. Matter of weeks. I think the arena is going to be fairly well empty. That's not Otzelberger's fault. But if he gets in there and wins, this is a transient town, just like a lot of great cities, a lot of front runners. People will want to come out and support a winner. Same situation in football. Does she want to try to fill the stadium with a big name, or does she want to get somebody who's going to come in and win now? And I think the impetus is you've got to win now, because if Fertitas did spend this money, I was mixed up. I was told that all these five-star recruits would come in and they'd say, wow, look at that building. I want to come here. Well, that hasn't happened. And I don't know why that hasn't happened, because they will have world-class facilities, certainly the best in this conference, and yet that doesn't seem to be the magic elixir. So it's going to be dependent on does Francois have the autonomy to make the decision? 2, what is her budget? And 3, what is her primary objective? To restore relevancy to the program in terms of how people view it as a program that's being taken serious, or do you get a no-name who might win on the field week one, but he's got to prove it to everybody first?
Those are such great questions. And you know what, Bernie, in the span of a few months here, within a few months, I think we're going to have the answer to a lot of those questions. Bernie, it is always a great conversation. I always love it when you come on the show and join us. Can you plug your show a little bit? Tell people a little bit about your show, your nationally syndicated show on Fox Sports.
Well, thank you, Brian. Fox Sports Radio. It's heard locally here, 1340 a.m., 11 p.m. Pacific, Saturday nights from 11 to midnight, syndicated on 360 stations, also iHeartRadio, Sirius XM Channel 83. And right now it's football season, Brian, so we're really football-centric, getting everybody ready for the Sunday games. We try to be eclectic as you are and cover broad-based journalistic issues as well.
Bernie, who are you taking tonight? I need a winner. I had a horrible weekend. I got to start listening to your show more often. But any free picks you want to give out tonight, I'm listening.
I would say it's a complete stay away, Brian. Get your favorite beverage and enjoy the game. However, if you have to have a gun to your head, Andy Dalton, 13-2 is a divisional dog in these situations. I think Cincinnati comes in and gives them a game. I think it's a close game.
All right. There you go. Bernie, thank you so much, man. Always appreciate it when you come on. Have a great show this weekend, and I know I'll be tuning in.
Thank you, and keep the faith, Brian.
All right. There he is. Love him. Bernie Fratto does a great job, not just covering the local spectrum here, but as a nationally syndicated host, as he said, 360 stations. And if you're looking for some winners, he's the guy you want to listen to. Don't listen to me. I had a horrible weekend. My producer, it's funny. Our producer here, Jason Stein, this is his second week. He makes this $20 bet, right? And he wins. He wins with these freaking $20 bets. And I'm making these bets that are, 7, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times more money. And I see him jumping up and down, screaming and yelling, hooting and hollering. I just want to punch him in the face. But then I think to myself, well, I need a useless producer, so I better not hurt him. No, I'm just kidding, Jason. I just get a little frustrated when he makes his $5 bet and he wins, and I lose a $500 bet. It's a little frustrating. So I told him today, I said, just give me a pick. Give me a pick. You'll probably give me a loser. That's my luck. That's the way I run. But now getting back to this UNLV issue real quickly, and we only have a few more minutes here. Like I've said, I like Tony Sanchez. He's a good guy. This was never going to work out. You can't hire a guy that's never coached at the college level and expect him to turn a program around that has been horrible since I've been alive. You can't, and this is what gets me so frustrated about some people in this town. And I'm sure they're frustrated with me too, so that's fine. There are people in this town, they're sports writers, members of the media that cover UNLV that have a responsibility to get it right. It's okay to be opinionated and not always be right? I'm wrong a lot. But there are people in this town that write articles and cover the football and basketball program. When they were thinking of firing Dave Rice when he was on the hot seat, they wanted to give him a contract extension. Yeah, that would have worked out really well. I'll even go to Marvin Menzies last year. There are some people that actually thought that Marvin Menzies should have not only returned, but give him another 2 years. Drinking the UNLV Kool-Aid. And these are some of the same people that think Tony Sanchez should stay. The word credibility comes to mind. Some of these people in this town that cover UNLV have zero credibility. I'm not the Messiah. I'm not always right. That's not what I'm saying here. But when they hired Dave Rice, I was doing a radio show at that time, and I was one of the first people to say, I don't like this hire. Why? Because he's an assistant coach that's never been a head coach before. I get it. He's got the UNLV ties. I get it. He played for Jerry Tarkanian. He was an assistant coach at BYU. You know, he's a very good assistant coach. He's a nice guy. I like Dave Rice. He's a class act. Even when they fired him, he faced the music. He spoke to the media. He was very cordial to everybody. Great guy. It's not about that. I wouldn't say those things about Marvin Menzies because I don't think Marvin Menzies is a great guy. I'll just say it. I don't, for a lot of different reasons. Dave Rice, good guy. Should have never hired Dave Rice as the head coach. It was the wrong hire. Marvin Menzies was like the 6th or 7th hire. You know, on the list. I mean, are we all surprised that didn't work out? But the point I'm trying to make is there are people in this town that just drink the Kool-Aid. What are we going to give somebody, 10 years before they have a winning season? Are we going to give somebody 10 years on the basketball program before they make it to the NCAA tournament? Why don't we give Sanchez a 5-year contract extension? Because, you know, he's close. Because he has the connection with the Fertittas, let's give him another 5 years. You have a responsibility as a journalist, whether it's an opinionated journalist, you cover the team, you do a radio show, I don't care. You have a responsibility to call it like it is. And there are people in this town when it comes to UNLV athletics that are afraid. They're afraid to tell it like it is. Oh, we're going to lose our sponsors. Oh, our relationship with UNLV is going to be tarnished. Then get the hell off the radio then if you're afraid to do that because you're a coward. There are people that write articles in this town that are not intellectually honest. They kiss the ass of the UNLV athletic department. And make no mistake about it, it is not my job to promote UNLV. It is my job to cover UNLV, to be opinionated, and to cover the games and to cover what's going on. That should be the responsibility of the media, not to sugarcoat things when you have absolutely no idea what you are talking about. And I think those of you that know me probably know who I'm talking about, but we'll save the names. We'll save the names. Anyway, folks, this has been a fun show. Thanks for joining us. And tomorrow on the program, it is the 2-year anniversary of the October 1 shooting. We are going to honor those victims. We are going to honor the first responders, and we are going to do our best job to remember and to look forward. How do we make sure none of these tragedies happen again? We're going to have some great guests lined up for you, including members of the Vegas Golden Knights coming on the show. And how are people dealing with this still 2 years later? We'll talk about that and get some stories from those that were there that fateful night. Have a great afternoon and day, everybody. The man, Sean Hannity, is coming up next. Have a great day.